Veronica, the girl who opened the wrong door. What if one ordinary afternoon you tried to contact someone who was no longer alive, and instead of getting an answer, something else answered you? In 1990s Madrid, a teenage girl named Veronica was living a difficult life. Her father was gone, her mother worked long hours, and Veronica had become responsible for taking care of her younger siblings. She was still a teenager, but she was already carrying responsibilities far beyond her age. Then came one afternoon that would change everything. An ordinary school day, an ordinary group of friends, and one decision that should never have been made. It was the day of a major solar eclipse. While other students were fascinated by what was happening in the sky, Veronica and two classmates became curious about something much darker. They decided to conduct a séance using a Ouija board. Their goal was simple. They wanted to contact Veronica's deceased father. But during the ritual, something went wrong. Veronica suddenly collapsed, and when she regained consciousness, she didn't understand what had happened. At first, everyone tried to forget about it. Maybe it was exhaustion, maybe fear, maybe simply the strange atmosphere of the eclipse. But Veronica soon realized something had followed her home. The strange events began quietly. Objects appeared to move without explanation. The atmosphere inside the apartment changed. Veronica started experiencing disturbing visions, and worst of all, she began to believe that something was interested in her younger siblings. But there was a problem. Nobody believed her. Her mother was constantly working, her friends were frightened, and Veronica was left trying to protect the children by herself. Then the situation became impossible to ignore. Her siblings began describing things that Veronica couldn't explain. Something seemed to be present inside their home, something they couldn't see clearly, but could feel. And every time Veronica tried to understand what she had summoned, the mystery became darker. Veronica began searching for answers. She discovered old information about séances and supernatural rituals. She started believing that the presence had attached itself to her, and she became convinced that she had to protect her family. But fear can change the way a person thinks. The more Veronica tried to fight the unknown, the more isolated she became. She couldn't sleep properly, she couldn't concentrate, and every unexplained sound became another warning. A door, a shadow, a strange noise from another room. The apartment that once felt like home now felt like a place she could never completely trust. And then came the most frightening realization. The presence might not have been interested in Veronica alone. Veronica believed the entity wanted something from her. But what exactly? Was it connected to the séance? Was it connected to the death of her father? Or had something much older entered the apartment? The film deliberately leaves part of that mystery uncertain, and that's what makes the story so unsettling. Because the horror isn't simply about seeing a ghost, it's about losing the ability to know what is real and what isn't. Veronica begins to question everything around her, her memories, her visions, her family, and even herself. Eventually, Veronica's desperate attempts to protect her siblings lead to a terrifying confrontation. She realizes that the supernatural presence may be connected to the ritual she performed earlier. The very thing she thought would allow her to communicate with the dead may have opened a door to something she never intended to meet. And by this point, there is no simple way to close that door. Veronica has to face the consequences of what happened, not as a fearless hero, but as a frightened teenager trying desperately to protect the people she loves. And that makes the story even more disturbing, because the supernatural horror is only one part of it. The other part is the fear of being completely alone when nobody believes you. Veronica is more than a conventional haunted house story. It combines supernatural horror with family pressure, isolation, guilt, and psychological fear.
The movie was inspired in part by a famous Spanish police report concerning an alleged unexplained incident involving a young girl, although the film dramatically fictionalizes and expands the story. And perhaps that's the most disturbing question the movie leaves behind. What if the scariest thing isn't summoning the dead, but discovering that something answered? Because sometimes you don't need to see a monster to be afraid. Sometimes all you need is an empty room, a strange noise, and the feeling that you're not alone. If you were in Veronica's situation, would you try to communicate with the dead or stay far away from anything supernatural? Tell me in the comments, yes or no. Subscribe to the channel for more terrifying movie stories, haunted legends, supernatural mysteries, and dark stories from around the world. Like this video, tap the bell icon, and share it with someone who loves horror movies but still watches them with the lights on.